You're listening to the Microsoft Innovation Podcast, where we explore the intersection of people, business, and technology. This year, we're adding a new show to our lineup, The AI Advantage, to help you learn the skills you need to thrive in the AI era.
Welcome to the MVP Show. My intention is that you listen to the stories of these MVP guests and are inspired to become an MVP and bring value to the world through your skills. If you have not checked it out already, I do a YouTube series called How to Become an MVP. The link is in the show notes. With that, let's get on with the show. Today's guest is from the United Kingdom. He was first awarded as MVP in 2024. He has a diverse background of industry and expertise and experiences. You can find links to his bio and socials in the show notes for this episode. As always, welcome to the show, Gary.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Thanks for having me on. So for the listeners, my name is Gary Blunden. I live in England, in the southeast, in the UK. I've been working in technology for about 15 years. And as you mentioned, I've got quite a diverse background across industry, working in aviation, construction, healthcare, among others. And I've been very fortunate in my career to have worked in London, in Sydney, in places in France. I've done a few spells in the US. And over that time, I feel like I've gathered enough information and insight into the world of technology, and have very recently been awarded the MVP status.
Awesome. Before we get underway, food, family, and fun, what do they mean to you?
Well, food, big subject. I think food for me, I feel like I'm quintessentially British with this, but I love a roast dinner on a Sunday. I know that's an easy answer, but it's true for me. I genuinely like knowing on a Sunday I'm going to get a big roast. And oddly, though, I'm not a big fan of roast potatoes, which is incredibly difficult for some people to understand. I don't mind them, but I'm not I'm not massive on them. I like beef, meat, and stuffing. I'd say stuffing is the one thing that I really look forward to.
So like a good pub lunch?
I do. Yeah, I do love a nice Sunday pub lunch. Also like home cooked roast, of course, by my other half, in case she listens to this. But yeah, can't be at pub lunch either.
I tell you, as I lived in London for a while, and that was just such a pleasurable experience on the weekend. The pubs are always jam-packed, right? There's squeezing past everybody to get in and get your table and for your pub lunch on Sunday. Just brilliant. Loved it.
Yeah, and I'm not exactly a very tall person. I'm about 5'8", 9", but all the pubs by me are very low ceilings. So you kind of have to crawl in, find yourself a cubby hole, sit down. You know, the warm sense of a pub with a nice smell of a roast. Yeah, you can't really beat it.
So what's top of mind for you right now? What's your focus? What are you working on? Where's life taking you?
I suppose in the last few years, my focus has, through no will of my own, has been on recovery projects. So working on large transformations that have launched but haven't landed well. And so a lot of my time has been coming in, auditing the health of the platform. I'm mostly talking about Power Platform here in Dynamics, but also Azure services as well, but mostly Microsoft. Coming in and looking at the digital maturity of the organization, how they've implemented Power Platform, where are their aches and pains, asking questions, actively listening, obviously really important, sort of seeking to understand before looking to be understood, really understanding where they're at with things. What's the current sentiment around the technology, and what do they believe needs to be done to improve the situation? So it's about righting the ship, coming in and sort of supporting organizations to achieve that.
Did you see any patterns emerge in those recovery type projects? I've been on a bunch of them across my 30-year career, and you see some patterns emerge. I'm keen to see what your observations have been.
I think the common pattern is that there's a dissonance between the technology itself and what the business need. And so there tends to be a lot of evangelism around the tech. This is a great shiny piece of tech, does some great stuff, but actually bridging that technology with, the real world scenarios that the users are facing tends to be where the breakdown occurs. And this can be for a multiplicity of factors. It could be that, the requirement capture was a bit loose. We didn't capture all scenarios. It may be that the technology, wasn't built to good spec, to good practice. It could be both, could be other things as well. So it's a complicated situation, which requires, extensive analysis across a multitude of different areas to try and understand, how do we improve the situation? How do we get into a better position?
You said you're doing a lot of those projects. Is it something you enjoy, righting the ship, so to speak, and bringing things back on track? Or do you prefer a greenfields opportunity where you get to craft a vision of the future and then implement it and not, have it go smoothly?
I think variety is the spice of life, isn't it? If you can get a bit of both, that's good for me. I think at the moment I'm enjoying it. It can be challenging, of course, because a lot of the time, a lot of the work that I'm looking at has been developed by multiple partners over long periods of time, sometimes dating back to the inception of the platform itself. So you're looking back at a lot of decisions that were made at a point in time where a lot of the information is limited or imperfect today to understand why those decisions were made. And so I enjoy the deductive aspect of it, trying to understand the reasoning behind the patterns that we're seeing today. So it's like putting your detective hat on and sort of helping enable organizations to understand, how we got here and what we need to do to move forward.
How did your career align to the Power Platform and Dynamics? Nobody goes to university and studies for this. Most people I talk to accidentally got put on a project for whatever reason. What was your pathway to the tech?
I was quite fortunate back in 2017, 2018, around there. I was working on one of the largest water infrastructure projects within the UK, I believe in Europe maybe. And through that project, there was a very large budget in technology, and a lot of that was being invested in innovative platforms and products. One of which was at that time, of course, the Power Platform coming onto the scene. So I had a lot of experience prior to that as a software engineer. I'd spent about maybe a decade before that on building software within .NET. And so coming from a coding background, I was able to recognize the benefits quite early on around these low code solutions and was willing to move to it.
Unusual, because often people that come from a developer heavy background don't like it because of the restrictions that, they don't have a blank canvas, so to speak. So what was that? Why did you find it compelling?
Well, I spent a long time living and existing within my IDE. That was pretty much my day to day. And I enjoyed it obviously for many years. And I built some fantastic solutions with great teams. I liked that it moved to the web, and I liked that I felt that I've come out of my own machine, and it was more interactive as well with other people. So I was improving that dimension, I think, working with others and collaborating more. I also recognized that some of the products we were using, even though they'd existed for a long time, that these products were better in some aspects, and that they warranted our attention. We needed to go out and have a look at these and see, should we spec these out for the next project? Should these be involved? And one of those was Power Automate. That workflow automation tool for us evolved from SharePoint 2013 workflows at the time. And those workflows were quite horrible to work with. And Power Automate done away with a lot of the complexities that we were dealing with at the time. There was a lot of composite black box logic that was being held in those flows, which is quite difficult certainly for juniors coming onto the team, to fully understand and get behind. And that was important for me, as I do a lot of work mentoring. So I felt this was a great platform to support what we were doing now, to build for now, but also to maintain in the future. So we made that decision back in 2017, 2018 to sort of dive into the platform, and I've been pretty much in it ever since.
What's your vision of the future for the Power Platform?
That's a great question. I think for me, obviously there's massive advancements being made now in technology around AI, and I'm quite excited about MCP and agent to agents, which was released fairly recently or shared very recently.
Microsoft just announced today that they're adopting it. Agents to agents from Google,
Yeah, which I'm quite excited about because it opens up, it kind of reinvents the way you engineer software. And that's really exciting, because this is like, it does feel like a new era and it, you've got to change your ways of working and way of thinking. And so for me, that's where I want the platform to go. I want it to adopt it heavily and educate and align people using the business tools already to recognize the value. And as an MVP, I sort of see myself in that position to help translate that.
I interviewed Ryan Cunningham yesterday on the podcast, and I feel that menus are going to go away, grids, views, forms over data. Why will we need any of that type of stuff in 2 years' time? Why will we need to know how to create a flow when we have potentially a tool would have got to the point then that it understood every document ever written about how to create Power Automate flows. It has the real-time telemetry data of all in-flight flows, so therefore now you can start learning from, how create self-healing systems and things like that, or process optimization, identify bottlenecks. All this kind of stuff now can be part of how you're creating software. And, when you think of people like what we've heard in the past, makers, you see people with titles that they're experts on flow. Let's say they're experts on Power Pages, Power Apps, Canvas model driven. Does all that kind of, to some degree, over the next 3 to 5 years, get abstracted away from us as builders? One of the things that, when talking to Ryan, came to me is this the ultimate vibe code platform that has got full governance and security wrapped around it? So I'm not saying all that rigor goes away, the ALM, the testing, the unit testing, all that kind of smart stuff, but we have agents do a lot more of that, and it doesn't forget to do it. It runs consistently. And then we come down to really orchestrating experiences based on what the scenario or the work or the workload that's the customer needs to have designed or built. Why would, I see it being weird that we'd need menus, that we would say, give me a list of all my accounts. Why? So you can look at them? Or are you saying, tell me all my accounts in arrears, or tell me all my accounts that I haven't followed up in 30 days? You got 48 accounts. Great. I want you to set an activity to follow up on each of those using their preferred contact method, email, SMS, whatever it might be. Have you thought about such things?
I have, maybe more recently than I care to admit, but I have considered the fact that these tools are going to transform the toolbox that we have, I suppose, for building solutions in the future. I've been actively working with GitHub Copilot for about 6 months now, and I can see the potential there in the pro code side. But focusing on the low code aspects, and I was quite fortunate again to work with Frank Lan at Microsoft on the plan designer, and sort of a small cohort of people there testing it. And I was quite interested by the plan designer because of the interchange between the documentation that we generate through solution design and actually bringing that in to the Power Platform. So can we serve it a complicated document that's got all of the functional requirements and non-functional setup for a solution, and serve it to some agent or agent of agents that can go and act on that and actually build a product. I don't know how far we are from that, but from my experience, it's certainly improving and progressing. I like the idea of actually letting go of some of this, because I don't necessarily enjoy going in and building loads of tables and fields, and it's part of the job and you do it, but it would be great to give that to some autonomous agent that can pick it up and run it for you. But there are things that that you don't say, right, to the model, and so that intelligence you build you draw from years of experience. So
100%, that doesn't go away without a doubt. I agree with you there. It's not an untrained person is not going to be able to come and create great solutions by their immaturity of prompting and immaturity of knowing the architecture, the parts, and how it all comes together. I think, those that have been and come through the last 5 to 10 years that the Power Platform has been around almost have an unfair advantage in the next 3 to 5 years, because anybody entering in 3 to 5 years' time will not have that legacy, not have that history. And I was on another call with the head of developer tools for Microsoft on the AI platform earlier this week, and I said, with AI, we're eliminating juniors, we're eliminating mid-tier developers. How do we ever get in 10 years' time experienced developers when they haven't gone through debugging their own code? They haven't gone through something not running as intended, and they have to find out why and what, and then we're not just going to bake and output experienced engineers if they haven't kind of beaten the trenches. So how do we think of that world in the future, or will it be irrelevant? I don't know.
Yeah, it's a valid concern. I feel like my retirement's going to be further away than I planned. I feel the same, in fact. So it is a valid concern, and I think that's why, as these technologies improve and they become more abstracted, the fundamental understanding of what's actually happening under the hood goes away in time. And as those that had that knowledge, go later on into their careers and retire. Yeah, it's what do we do with that lack of knowledge within the ecosystem? I'm hoping that it doesn't happen that way, and that there is some planning involved, obviously structure around how we retain that critical knowledge. It may be that AI supersedes us seniors and knows more than we do, because it can see what the past looked like and how we got to where we are.
Even as I said the question to you, I realized, when I started my career, I used to teach a class called Internet Working, a 5-day class on how packets moved from your computer keyboard through your NIC on your computer, through what was called the Open System Interconnection Reference Model, which is a multi-layer process of ultimately getting to hardware and going out your network cable and traveling across, your local routers, and then internet backbone routers, and how DNS worked and how TCP and IP and everything worked. And of course, nobody cares about that these days. It just works, right? If I want a domain name, I just go and put my credit card and I get a domain name, and somebody says something about DNS and it pre-populates it all for me with a few questions. I don't know how, like a modern individual building a web, even the other day, I'm not a developer, and I've got VS Code open. I install Roo, an extension, put a gateway on that accesses all the different models, right? Put $25 a credit down so I can take tokens in, and built a 30-screen web app in 10 minutes through prompting. Watch the code get all written in front of me. Say, get it to debug itself. Get it, as you say with GitHub Copilot, and it's just like, I could, if I'd gone and asked somebody to build that a week ago, that would have been 2 weeks worth of work.
Yeah. You have to stand up and take notice of that, because it's just a paradigm shift, isn't it, in terms of how we develop solutions. I think there's a part to play for AI, but at the same time, that human supervision is so critical still, because those that use this technology daily within software engineering will likely testify as well that there are still a lot of nuances that AI doesn't yet understand, and painfully so as well. If you're building something and you've got a pattern within your project that you want to align to, or you can't yet see your full solution. So, it's really difficult. If you want to spin up a scaffolding for a new application, great. AI will go away and do that for you. But as you maintain that code base over time, I don't think AI is there yet that I would feel comfortable with to give it supervision over.
And I wouldn't call what I built was a trustworthy AI solution or anything, any stretch. I'm doing it because I'm wanting to test the limits of where things are at, and I want to have my own experience of it, not read somebody's blog post about it, and use secondhand knowledge. But what blew me away is what I could prototype in such a short time. And that's what blew me away, because I know, I've had teams of developers work for me across my career, and I know if I'd asked, like I would have in the past, for a demo of X to be built for a customer, to show them the art of the possible, that would be a multi-week thing based on the complexity of what I built the other day. And I was just like, man, things are changing quickly.
We thought we had rapid app development with the Power Platform when it came out, and now we've got this lightning fast development.
I bet low code's going to go away, and I bet you're going to hear Microsoft in the Power Platform space talk about vibe coding. It's like they're going to infer that this is the enterprise scale vibe coding platform. Watch the space, see if it happens.
Yeah, it would seem like that is the trajectory we're on, and notably, though, I still think, as I mentioned, we're a few steps behind. But if we can see improvements in certain areas, like most recently, we were looking at providing a proof of execution through vibe code. So just very quickly trying to spin up a scaffolding of a project, and it spit out some documentation for us as well based on what it had built. And what we found, it was like B2C now has been deprecated in Azure. And it was still recommending these as identity management systems. It was still baking all of this stuff in.
Yeah, I've definitely seen that, right?
And so you've got to have a close watch on what it's doing and saying, because if you just build it out and then show that to a client, obviously they're going to be like, yeah, this looks great, let's crack on. And then when you move to a proof of value, you recognize actually a lot of the work that you prototyped isn't actually available anymore, or it's anti-pattern somewhere in how it's built it. So yeah, it's one of those things. I think we'll see a lot of mistakes made through the developments through those approaches. So I think it's critical to keep that discussion going, that there's a discourse around, this is great technology, but you still need the experts in the room.
100%. How did you become an MVP? What was the process?
Since about 2021, I was actively presenting my insights around Power Platform and D365, lots of conferences, sat on quite a few panels, and I was invited to a lot of talks. And I really didn't know much about the MVP program, which for someone that is now an MVP, I don't know if that's the for most. I think they obviously got great awareness of the MVP program, but I was someone that was just very unaware, I suppose, of what the program was, and I knew MVPs, of course, through my career, but I never really took, for some reason, I never really fully understood or took much notice about the program itself. I recognized the expertise that the MVP program had, but I never actively thought that I would become one. And over about 3 or 4 years of networking and working within the technical communities, inevitably, I suppose, in that period, someone called Alexio reached out to me and said, "Yeah, you should be an MVP. You should join and look at the program and see what they have to offer." It's a fantastic program. It's going to broaden your horizons. And he was absolutely right. I joined the program, and since then I've had conversations with rollout of Azure Cloud for a large organization in Africa. I've been talking with using AI Foundry in healthcare, and there's just things that I wouldn't have had available or had the opportunity to do if I hadn't been part of the program. So I'm very fortunate to have been welcomed in. Since then I've been actively contributing, I suppose, within my area of expertise, which would be business applications and data and AI.
Awesome. Thanks, Gary. It's been great talking to you. Hopefully we'll catch up with you at an event before too long, hopefully within the year.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for listening. I'm your host, Business Application MVP Mark Smith, otherwise known as the NZ365 Guy. If you like the show and want to be a supporter, check out buymeacoffee.com/NZ365 Guy. Thanks again, and see you next time.
Are you ready to accelerate your career in the Microsoft ecosystem? The 90-Day Mentoring Challenge, created by Mark Smith, is your opportunity to create a personalized pathway to success. Join over 1,200 alumni from more than 70 countries who have achieved remarkable results, from promotions to new job opportunities. Take it from Nathan, who said, "Since completing the 90-Day Mentoring Challenge, I've become an MVP in business applications and doubled my income." Or from Parvez, who shares, "I've never felt as inspired or energized about my career as I do now." Sign up at arcor.nz365guy.com. You can find the link in the show notes. And if you use the code podcast, you'll get 10% off.